Ladies and gentlemen, would you all please stand and join Councilwoman Paget in the pledge to our country. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor?
Will you bow with me in prayer? Our Father in heaven, we just want to thank you for the blessings that you have laid upon us. We thank you for this season, that the world stops and remembers Resurrection Sunday, how it changed our lives and our world, and we want to thank you for that. We thank you for this community. We thank you for Guthrie, Oklahoma. We thank you for the people, the men and women that serve this town and all the things that we do. And we just want to thank you, especially this group before me tonight, the city council. Just pray that you guide and direct them, grant them wisdom that only comes from above. And Father, we just ask your blessing and thank you for this opportunity that we have to serve. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of March 6th. We do not have any public comments on the Public Works Authority. I'll move to a third item, which is a consent agenda A. Only one item, which is the approval of the minutes of our Public Works Authority meeting of February 27th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval of those Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of February 27th. That being the last item on the agenda, the Public Works Authority meeting is adjourned. And I call to order our City Council meeting of March 6th. We have consent agenda items A through P. Wow. So bear with me. A is the approval of the minutes of Guthrie Public Works Workshop, Guthrie Workshop of February 27th. B is the approval of our City Council meeting of February 27th. C is the approval of amendment for lease number 3. This is consumer price index amendments adjusting their rates for all of these next items. D is amendment for lease number 4 with Blue Skies Flight. E is lease amendment for lease number 6 with Pegasus Properties. F is amendment for lease number 7 with Stan Young. G is amendment for lease number 7A with ABA Contractors. H is amendment for lease number 8 with Keith Northrup. I is amendment for lease number 10K with Bank First. J is amendment for lease number 10P, Keith Northrup. K is the amendment for lease number 11, Leonard Patterson. L is amendment for lease number 13 with Gail Braden. M is amendment for lease number 14B through F with T&T Insurance Company. N is the amendment for lease number 17 with the hangars at Guthrie. O is the amendment for lease number 18 with Bross Enterprise. And P is the amendment of lease number 19 also with Bross Enterprise. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second
Second.
for all those consent agenda items A through P. Is there any discussion? Submit your votes, please.
All votes are in.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval of consent agenda items A through P. Item number 3 is a public hearing and discussion of possible action on ordinance number 3313. Which is to grant a request from Melvin Joe and Laura Ann Evans to rezone property described from R1 to A2. Rebecca, are you presenting staff comments?
Yes. So this was revised from the original application, which was a request for 14.34 acres to go from R1 single family to our suburban district, which is A2. It was revised after our last regular council meeting on January 16th and was resubmitted to apply for 8.59 acres to go from R1 to A2, most of which lies within the 100-year flood zone, and then keeping the remainder 4.84 acres R1, which is single-family residential. A couple of corrections to the letter that Mr. Evans submitted that's in your packet. He notates 13.48 acres. That must be a typo. The survey is 13.43. Also, he quoted in the letter that it was illegal to construct in the 100-year floodplain. I'm a certified floodplain manager and the FPA for Guthrie. That is incorrect. You can construct in the 100-year floodplain. There's just extra regulations that are involved and specific elevations above the base flood elevation for that area. He also highlights in his submittal Section 13 of Ordinance 2422, which is in our zoning ordinance, talking about the floodplain district. The floodplain does not trump our zoning land use district. It does not trump Section 3, which is our R1 zoning. Instead, the floodplain is made to coincide with our different land use zoning districts. So the city designates the land use or the zoning for those parcels, while the floodplain is not decided by the city. Rather, it's from FEMA, and it's just a reflection of the watershed in that area. So I just wanted to point that out. It's also mentioned in the letter, he's simply asking the city to fix their mistake, that the R1 zoning must have been a mistake because Section 13 states that any floodplain allowable uses would be agricultural uses. They would also be recreational purposes, public green space. That does say that. However, as I've laid out tonight, there's a flood map on each of your areas of the entire city of Guthrie. And so I just want to show that the watershed and the 100-year floodplain can be found in all types of zoning across our city. So that doesn't mean the city has made a mistake. It simply means that that could allow for extra regulations if you want to develop there, and there might be some additional guidelines, flood insurance requirements, those types of things. So I did want to point that out. I did not put a recommendation with the revised application. And the reason for that is simply that a mistake was not made in this area. It's been R1 for 30 plus years. The people that live there have lived in an R1 environment for that time. People that have recently purchased were under the notion that it was R1. I'm not sure that by approving that tonight and potentially changing the integrity of the area, that is going to benefit the area. I think it'll benefit the property owner, but not the area specifically. Also, in the packet, he put an example of what a horse barn that he would like to build would look like. In our city ordinance, we do not allow for metal buildings outside the industrial zoning district. So that is another thing that we'll have to come to at that point, that barn will not be allowed as is unless it's going to go for a 100% variance from Board of Adjustment. I have a couple more things. The Planning Commission they unanimously disapproved this application when it was originally submitted. This revised application just came back to council, did not go back to Planning Commission. So I just wanted to reiterate that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, with all due respect, you weren't going to give an opinion of it, but you just did. I'll just say that.
An opinion or a
You said,
recommendation?
I'm not going to give a recommendation, but you did give a recommendation.
I should say, let me clarify. I should say a recommendation to approve the application as
Right.
is. Yeah.
But you did. You gave one to not approve it.
The planning
No.
commission voted not to approve it. That was the planning commission's recommendation when this was heard by the planning commission, not Rebecca's recommendation.
Yeah, I think the comment was that unanimous,
Well, the comment was, I'm not going to give a recommendation on this, but you turned around and gave a recommendation. That's what I just heard.
Well, what you heard was correct. She, as a staff person,
Right.
is not going to give a staff recommendation. Her job as the liaison, planning director and liaison to the planning commission is to tell you what the planning commission did. The planning commission is a recommending body to you on zoning.
I understand.
And they recommended disapproval. But that's not her recommendation.
Okay, we go
That's
back
their
and look at the
recommendation.
tape then, right? Okay.
the other,
I heard what I heard.
the clarification that I asked, on the barn, I know that that's a subsequent issue, but you mentioned that goes back to Board of Adjustments. Would that not go back to planning? No? Board of
No.
Adjustment?
I think we ought to leave that discussion for a different evening because that doesn't have a bearing on the zoning.
True, true, true. Okay,
What I understand is that, what I do have an understanding is that Planning Commission denied this on the original application. They have not seen this revised application, which is leaving parts of R1 there.
That is correct. The revision did not go back to planning, it just came back to you all. After that solution was, I guess, suggested that they could do and revise their application.
okay.
And
Mr. Case?
My question was kind of general, and it dealt with the barn as well. If we rezone this as agricultural, does the barn then still not meet?
I don't know that we know. I mean, whether it does or doesn't really is irrelevant to the zoning. The question is this use proper for this rezoned area? They'll have to come to get a building permit for any structure there, and at that point, we're not going to approve, if metal buildings are not allowed in this zoning, which I don't think they are, we will not approve a building permit. They'll be told to go get a variance if the Board of Adjustment thinks that's proper.
Even though we rezone it as agricultural?
Yeah.
Because it's still within city,
I think so.
still within city limits, so I would imagine no
Yeah.
metal buildings within city
Right.
limits,
Right.
regardless
But
of how it's done.
But the issue that is before us again is on
Is
on
not,
the zoning.
yes.
But,
Right.
Has nothing
good-
to do with the
good-
building.
Good question.
Understood.
so I have a question about the pipeline, because this was brought up in previous comments. Do we know what the setback is that residents have to be from that pipeline? Because it's mentioned in here that the property behind the property in question could never be used for residential due to the pipeline.
That would be set by the pipeline company, not the city.
Okay.
We could get the answer to that, but it's not set by the city.
Okay.
150 feet.
All right. Does anybody
All right.
else on the council have a question for Rebecca? Okay, thank you very much. I know that obviously there are individuals here that want to speak to this issue. I'd like, and I have a number of you that have identified, I'd like to first have those individuals that are in favor of this application to speak first, and then those opposed can speak, and then Mr. Evans at the end is the process that I'd like to go through. And the applications for public comment didn't identify if you're for or against, so I guess the individuals that would like to speak in favor of the application, I'll accept those first. Please identify yourself and your address, and then your comments to the council.
My name is Bob Freeze, and my address is 2105 South Division. Definitely for a vote on this in the positive. Again, appreciate the city manager helping the landowner try to develop a plan that would hopefully pass the commission. And I did read a great article from the city planner in the paper describing what all was looked at to change the zoning. My family has had animals in that area for 50-plus years. It's specifically in the area where the houses were, and we had it fenced all the way around the lake. Used all of that area for farmland animals a number of years. And I took a note there that there was concern with whether the zoning would cause a change to the property owners in that address, in that area, and I can't see that bottom land would represent any kind of damage to anybody because it hasn't been used other than grazing for years. And I saw the design of Mr. Evans where he planned to run the fence line and stuff like that. And it's way down in the bottom. You probably can't even see it from the road. And I think he noted that there was an offset of quite a distance from his fence line to any of the houses or the house in that area. And I just think that he's done everything he can to make it workable for both parties. And just hope that everybody kind of takes all that into consideration.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Fry? Okay. Any other citizens that want to speak in favor of the proposed rezoning? Okay. Legal suggests that, does the applicant want to address the council at this time?
I understood you to say that you wanted.
I did. I'm changing my mind on that upon legal review.
Well, sorry about that.
My name is Doug Friesen. Live at 1309 North Chartel in Oklahoma City. I'm here as a friend of Joe Evans. He is out of town on business. He's been here previously. While I have heard the comments earlier made, I do believe that there was, if not a mistake, then certainly an omission when the current when the current ordinances were passed. In '82, there was a significant amount of additional property added as residential property. Then in '85, 3 years after that, we come and we have the flood plain designated. And while it is true that there can be exceptions made as a general rule without a tremendous amount of work done, expensive work done, the floodplain is generally not very desirous to build upon. It's not really made for residential. With that in mind, what Mr. Evans and his wife Laura, who is here today, want to do is they want to fence off, as you've seen in the packets, they want to fence off that section that has been designated as a floodplain, which without a lot of additional work cannot be built upon anyway for the 3 horses that he has. I know from talking to Joe, there's been some concerns about whether he's going to own a pig farm. He's not. You can't have that according to the floodplain. He's not going to have a chicken farm or any of those things. I will tell you that there had been questions about what kind of stable he wanted, and that's the only reason that he put this picture in there. It is not the specific stable that he's going to have, he certainly would be complying with all the ordinances and jumping through the proper hoops for those. He just wanted to give some kind of example so that of what he was envisioning to answer those questions. I have talked with the family at some length. Right now, what we have is we have a lot of sloping ground that is out of sight of everything that is significantly above the floodplain, but there's no buildings on it at all. They are going to build a house that is in excess of $200,000 they're proposing for them to live in. She's retired. He's anticipating retiring pretty soon. Quite frankly, one of the joys they get is watching their grandchildren ride the horses. I'll be real honest with you. It's just a place that they want to play, have their grandchildren play, be able to watch them. So that's basically what I'm saying here tonight, is if it wasn't a mistake, could have been an oversight, all we're saying is you can't really build on it anyway. We put a fence there. You cannot see the fence from the neighbor's property. Tried, can't do it. Hence, unless you could just see the ears of the horses sticking out, it's not going to be there. But what there will be is a very nice maintained yard and $200,000 plus home there. I can't see this as doing anything but raising the property value. The Taylor's property that is adjoining is some 80 acres. It has cattle on it. It's always had cattle on it, and that's not changing. That got grandfathered in. I'm not griping about it, but as it was previously pointed out, there's livestock all around the lake there. And this property obviously butts up right against the dam. I don't think anybody would be negatively affected, and I don't think it's going to negatively affect anybody's property values to put a very nice home there, a nice stable, not this one in particular, but a nice stable, and so that they can have a place to retire and enjoy with their grandchildren. That's what we're asking to do.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Friesen?
So would this area that would be rezoned agricultural if we approve this be fenced off?
Yes, in fact, if you go to exhibit number 4 in your packet,
Okay.
This is his property line here. The floodplain is here in the shaded area. The line butting against the top portions there is the proposed fence line.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions, Mr. Friesen? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now, the opportunity of any of the citizens that would like to speak that are opposed to the proposed rezoning, we'll offer that opportunity. Again, identify yourself and your address.
I will. Good evening. My name is Jeff Fry. I have a business in Guthrie at 108 South Division Street, Suite 201. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I am the son of Jim and Vicki Fry. We own the 6 acres that are most impacted by this decision. Their lots are divided into the center 2 acres is their homestead. They have 2 1-acre lots on the north side of Lake Road and 2 1-acre lots on the south side of Lake Road as the road meanders around toward the lake. I apologize we're not in attendance at the January meeting, but we did see that on YouTube, and we appreciate that opportunity. I do want to clear up at least a couple of bits of misinformation that were in that meeting. It was pointed out that there was only one family in opposition to this. In fact, I know the Smith family and the Taylor family, in addition to the Fry family, have written letters and have been in attendance at all but one of these meetings. And of course, Planning and Zoning did not approve this as well, or did not recommend this for approval. As we saw the attempted compromise, we've given this an awful lot of thought, and we appreciate council bringing this forward. However, after careful consideration, we still feel that this does not address our concerns. It does not in any way mitigate what we are concerned about. Our primary concern is, again, is if this passes to Agriculture 2, while I appreciate the manner in which they describe what this property is going to be used for, we have the same kind of story. I can tell you about our grandchildren, you know, riding four-wheelers and wagons and bicycles all around our 6 acres, and we have the very same thing, okay? The difference is that we have 4 one-acre lots that may be developed and built into nice $400,000 homes like the one that we built for my parents, okay? One of those lots is 300 feet from where I'm supposing, based on the diagram, where this barn would go. And it's due east of it. And so I can only assume that this is where the animals are going to congregate, this is where they're going to be fed, and this is where most of the odor is going to emit from. Okay, that lot where we are at, that lot that I'm talking about, is the one that we've had no less than 4 people want to purchase already. So that is our most desirable lot closest to Guthrie Lake. And that's the one that would be impacted most, in my opinion, financially if this passes. We appreciate that this is what they want, but as you know, and it was said many times, I think at least 3 times in the last meeting, if this passes, anything can happen. And while I don't anticipate that the Evans family is going to do any of the things that could be done, the fact is it can. And so it's already been, the box has been opened, you can't put the genie back in. Okay? This property's already been bought and sold twice in 2 years. Something could happen, they could decide to sell it, the next person see it as an opportunity to put 15 cows in that area. There's nothing stopping that. The second concern is, if this happens, we've already been, the other landowner, I believe it's Tyndall family, has asked about putting goats on that property. So we've now set a precedent, albeit it may be a little harder battle because he does, to my knowledge, he doesn't have any property in the floodplain, but a precedent has been set. He's going to say, just like what we're hearing here, I got cows to the north, I got horses to the south, why can't I have 2 goats? The precedent is set, and so the city, I think you're going to be in a bind there. Lastly, this is just going to have a lasting financial impact on my parents. This is their nest egg, okay? Having this property, this beautiful property, if you've seen it, is their nest egg. If they need money, they can sell a lot today. Today. They put everything they had into buying this property to retire here in Guthrie with this property. It really boils down to one really simple thing. And we last thing we wanted was any kind of land dispute, 3 articles in the blasted newspaper or anything like that with the Evans family. My parents want to settle into a piece of property, get to know their neighbors, and just live, okay? Unfortunately, piece of property was bought, misguided belief that they could put horses there. When they found out they can't, now they're asking the family who's most impacted, and potentially 4 future families that will buy these lots to be impacted, to have horses, to have livestock right here at their back door. I'm sorry that that happened. We didn't ask for this. We apologize that we're being as contradictory to their request, but it just simply is not fair. It is not fair that if they decide to put more livestock or someone else decides to put more livestock there, we have no recourse, none. The precedent would be set, City of Guthrie would be stuck, and I don't think that's where you guys want to be either. I can't imagine that you would. So with that, I'd like to close my comments. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fry, thank you. Any questions by any council member?
Yeah, we approved these little horses at one time on Sooner Road. And we approved it with a stipulation that that's all they could have, and they couldn't have any more. It's right down on Ridgecrest. It's right down the street right in front of Phil Nichols' neighborhood, right going into there, right down there. There's these little horses.
I'm not familiar with it.
Well,
It may have been a special use permit.
and I think we didn't do it here, we did it on Board of Adjustment is where we did it. And so my question is this, can we not take something and modify it? Yes, the answer is yes, we can. We can modify anything that this board wants to modify. So we can take that agriculture piece, because we're gonna split zone it, is what's gonna happen here, if it happens. The original deal was to zone it all agriculture. The city, which I can't believe isn't putting a recommendation, because the city came up with split zoning it. That's how we're here where we're at today.
Right.
This isn't something I came up with, or Randall, or anybody else. The city came up with it. So, but yet there's no recommendation for it. Makes no sense to me. So this board can go in there and modify it. And we can say, yes, he can have those 3 horses, but he can't have any more. And there's not gonna, and we could even potentially go as far as to say there isn't gonna be any other livestock on there ever if this family moves out. Okay? And the board can do it. It's just a matter of the wording.
Can we do that when the zoning does not restrict numbers? It restricts
No.
types of animals.
The only way that can be done, and I have not, and I don't know whether Rebecca has, research is either you do it would be a special use permit that would allow the use, and then you can put whatever restrictions you want to on it.
And that's what we do with the horses.
That's-
With the baby pony.
We would need to research that, because when we looked at it, it didn't appear that there was a special use permit provision for this particular situation.
And that's probably correct, because a special use permit has to be authorized by ordinance, just like zoning has to be by ordinance. The other,
Maybe that's why we did it through.
and again, I haven't read our PUD ordinance to see if it even would apply to this. But under certain circumstances with planned unit developments, you can put whatever requirements you want to put on an application, but that's generally the separate zoning, and we've got a pretty specific special use, or not special use, but planned unit development ordinance. But I didn't really look at that.
So it wouldn't be like a
Well-
temporary variance or something?
No, there's none.
It could follow like we did with the little ponies, it can follow the owner. And then the special use goes away.
And
That's how that
remember
works.
that, but I don't remember what the process was.
But the fact of the matter is, we didn't come up with this. I mean, we were looking at either we're gonna rezone the whole thing or not. Okay, and then this council was presented with another option, which made sense to me at that point. And it does, I know the land. My property is pretty much behind it.
Yeah, I heard.
And so I know where it's at. And, you know, at the end of the day, I don't see any use for that land down there other than having some potential cattle or horses graze on it. Okay? And if it was your land, where's Jeff? Is he here?
No.
Oh, he
recused
recused himself.
If it were your land, you'd potentially have cattle on it right now because you were grandfathered in. And I understand that. I get it. Okay, I do get that. Because that's all it's good for. There's not good for anything else. Is there no happy medium where this fence can't be put on the closer in so that it's further away from your lot? Is there not some kind of happy medium?
I also want to cover one other thing. We can already still see the red metal shed that's out there now. We can see it clearly, at least the top half of it, from our back porch,
Yeah.
from where it's sitting today.
I hear you. And,
And
you know,
so, but I'm just trying to illustrate that the conversation that nothing's going to be seen because it's down from the hill is not necessarily factual. We already see what's there. There's a big bale of hay sitting there today. Okay, and that's fine. I mean, we've got stuff we store sometimes, and that's perfectly understandable, but I can't allow this conversation to just be about a utopia that one family is going to create at the potential financial impact of another. I mean, to me, that's just the bottom line. I get what you're saying. It can't be useful or whatever. If we had the money, we would have bought it, and you know what it would be for? It would be for the grandkids to just go hiking around. Okay?
But isn't
Now,
there a
we're not horse people, we're not cattle
Right.
people, of course.
But isn't there a happy medium that could be, isn't there some kind of a happy
That
medium?
monetary thing goes both ways.
Exactly.
So either the monetary thing goes both ways. I mean, if we rule like you want, he gets devastated financially. If we realize.
I'm sure he can turn around and sell it and not lose his money. I mean,
You're gonna get.
that
but
land
you see what
sold
I mean? It goes
twice
both
in
ways.
2 years.
So is there not some place in the middle where we
I
can meet, is
appreciate what
what
you're saying,
Brian's
Mr.
at?
Councilman, but, you know, we've got about $500,000 or $600,000 invested already today in of built property. And so I'm just trying to compare apples and aardvarks here and just telling you that what's here today, you know, they say the road to you-know-where is paved by good intentions, and I don't want to assume ill intentions, and I'm sure the Evanses want to do exactly what they say. But their situation can change tomorrow. They sell that property, that's A2, and we got 15 cows sitting out there, or 15 emus, or 15 llamas.
But again, there's an ordinance that we can put into play that we can restrict that, and there is.
We might
We've already
consider
done
that.
it.
We might consider that. It sounds like.
Because I can't see 3 horses being
As a matter of fact,
novel
you go
for
to,
anybody.
Well, you can't, but
I mean, and 14 acres won't sustain much more than that. So they're either gonna be bony and dead, or they're gonna be 3 horses out there. I can't see this expanding.
it's
is
not
what
even
I'm saying.
14 acres that's going to sustain
no,
it.
they're going to
It's
be on
probably
about 8
6
acres.
or 7.
I'm just,
And again, it's not about specifically 3 acres or 3 horses or whatever, and it's not the Fry family against the Evans family. It's just simple. It's setting a precedent, and it's opening Pandora's box that property can change over in a heartbeat.
Well, if we're going to set a precedent, excuse me, but if we're going to set a precedent, we need to set a precedent to where people are allowed to come in and live as well. Because here's the deal, we're in a rural community. I get that we're not going to have horses downtown, we're not going to have horses over at the Dominion House and that type thing. But some of these areas where you're looking at 10, 15, 20, 30 acres of land is in city limits, okay? So that means you're going to take the horses away from, what does this grandfather thing do then? You know, you're going to go take the horses away from everybody in city
With all
limits?
due respect, I don't understand why you're taking this to me.
I'm not taking it to you.
It sounds like you're taking it to me.
I'm not taking it to you.
All I'm trying to
always
say
does.
here is, there's an ordinance been in place 38 years. Somebody bought a piece of property and didn't do their due diligence, and now we've got to change. Excuse me? I'm sorry. There's no fairness in that. There's nothing that's right in that. And I feel like you're attacking
No,
me
no, no.
over
I
something
apologize
about
if that's
whether
what you
Robbie
feel.
cut 15 acres.
No.
There's land like that all over
Because
Edmonton.
where I'm trying to get to here before we vote and it goes completely against you or 100% for you either way, okay, that if there's a happy medium, because we already found a happy medium in other scenarios.
Yeah.
Okay, this whole town, go up and down Division, it was all zone C2. Okay, it's not residential, it's C2 all the way up and down Division.
I'm not saying we wouldn't consider that if there was a way to put some restraints to that. I think we would be we would consider that.
There you go.
At the same time, however, understand that we are the ones that are bending over for this. We're the ones that have been in a 5-month dispute. You have no idea what this does to my parents for 5 months. Thanksgiving dinner, we're talking about this. Christmas dinner, we're talking about this. We shouldn't have to do this. Somebody made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't, let me try to move in here. I don't think that anybody made a mistake. I think that there's an application for, the zoning was not, I don't believe was a mistake.
I'm not saying zoning was a mistake was made.
In the purchase of the
What I
property.
heard was the realtor told me I could put
Yeah,
my
okay.
horses on it.
If that's the mistake you're talking about,
I'm
then,
implying.
okay. And of course, as far as setting a precedent, any requests for rezoning, of course, are handled individually and on their own merit, and every case is different, and we have seen many of them. I mean, I understand what you're saying. You want to guarantee that 3 horses doesn't turn into something larger. You want to guarantee that things aren't going to obstruct views. And the Evans proposal reflects some things, including the construction of a seemingly very nice house between your parents' property and the said, well, the floodplain area, the fence, for lack of a better word, because it's right on the floodplain line. So I think I clearly understand where you're coming from, as well as where Mr. Evans is coming from. I think the intent was to try to figure out a way that, in fact, could be of value to both parties.
And I said, I appreciate that.
And we're trying hard. We're trying hard.
And
for
I
that.
understand, and we gave it a ton of consideration.
Yeah.
We truly did.
Okay.
I just don't find that it answers our three primary concerns.
Okay.
And so for
Any other
that-
question for Mr. Fry?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fry. Are there any other citizens that want to speak in opposition? Please identify themselves and address, please.
Hi, I'm Debbie Taylor, and I live at 6801 Chris Madison Road out in the Guthrie Lake Addition. My husband Jeff and I both object to having hoofed animals and a barn built at 1100 West Lake Road. We just feel that the city should keep the ordinances and follow what is in place at this time. And the property, as been stated, north of that is R1 and has, as we've said, it's grandfathered in. In the future, Jeff will be the owner of that land at 822 Lake Road. It was left to him by his parents, Oris and Judy Taylor. Jeff and his father are the two that have farmed and raised cattle on that as Ridgecrest Farms since he was a young boy. Only them. And the Planning Commission zoned that has denied the change in zoning, and we just ask that you keep that. We just ask that Mr. Fry has already said that there were other neighbors that were against it. One thing, the people who have the Evans who bought the property said they had other property that they have their horses on, so they do have property to keep their horses. And in real estate, it's up to the buyer to find out the zoning ordinances for property or any conditions, restrictions on property you're buying. That's your responsibility. So that's something, buyer beware. It's their responsibility to find that out. So when they say that they didn't know, that was something they should have looked into. So we just ask that you keep the zoning as it is.
Okay. Any council have any questions of Ms. Taylor? Okay, thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you.
Last chance, are there any other members of the citizenry here that would like to speak in opposition to the proposal? Okay. I want a clarification from legal. So if the scenario changes and there's a desire to bring a different type of animal or numbers of animals, there is an opportunity for us to approve or disapprove that?
No, if you approve the application as it is filed, that's to rezone, then whatever is allowed in that.
So it's just the zoning requirements under
whatever those
A,
zoning
okay,
uses and
under A2.
requirements are, those are allowed on that floodplain property now.
Okay, all right.
What are the requirements? I mean, what are the usages of A2? Can we specify that a little more clearly?
I'd have to have Rebecca do that.
Can you speak to that, Rebecca? I think it's in our, it was in one of our packages anyway. I
It
know.
is in the packet. I'll just go down the permitted uses that are granted by the zoning approval that don't require an additional approval by any board. For A2, that's going to be a single-family dwelling, field crops, fruits, tree nuts, vegetables, kennel, general farms, livestock, plant nursery or greenhouse, oil and gas production and drilling, church, mission, temporary revival, tent or arbor, library, municipal use public building, park playground, public recreation area, public school or equivalent private school. And then the next page gets into utilities, communication, transportation. I can go through those if you want. Also miscellaneous accessory buildings, advertising sign, child daycare, family daycare home, child care center commercial, drainage easement, drainage structure, flood control facility, home occupation, parking lot for permitted use, but you don't have to get an approval for the lot. A temporary roadside stand for sale of farm products grown on premises. Also, temporary sign, 40 square feet or less, an area related to real estate transaction of premises.
Thank you, Rebecca. I think probably the general farm would include all animals that are typically found on a farm. Is that correct?
That is correct. One of the reasons for the 8.59 acres versus having 10 or more is we do have an ordinance that says you need a minimum of 10 acres to have a hog farm. So that would not be a potential on this size.
Okay, thank you very
Cattle,
much.
cattle would be, horses, obviously. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, of legal, what would we have to do to work on this?
Up to your mic.
What would we have to do, I was talking to him, what would we have to do in order to come up with a plan like Brian was talking about? How difficult is that?
Mr. Mayor, I may have a suggestion that could take care of this.
Because at this point, rezoning to A2 is
Okay.
not what I
Let
thought it
him
was.
speak.
Yes, sir. Again, identify yourself, please.
Doug Friesen. One of the things that we would be happy to do would be to put I understand that there could be concern about turning the property for something else. We would be more than happy to to agree to a restriction that any deed that the Evans would give to anybody else would cause the variance, if you will, or the rezoning to revert back to where it was beforehand, which should clear up any potential concern about that, about it being used for anything else. And we would be happy to jump through whatever hoops we need to put that kind of restriction on any kind of deed, that it automatically reverts back to the current zoning.
I'm not sure that I understand what you said.
We're asking for you to, in the flood zone,
Yes.
to make a different zoning than it is now. What I'm saying is, in the event, one of Mr. Fry's concerns was that, okay, what happens if we sell it and they want to do something different with it? We'll be happy to agree to a restriction that in the event that the Evans deed the home to anyone else other than a potential family trust, that the zoning then would revert
To
back
R1?
to its current zoning now.
Okay.
So you're willing to work on this?
What?
You're willing to work to make this happen?
Absolutely, we're willing to work to make this happen. The other thing is that while all these other uses, as a general rule, could be used for the R2, the reality is that this lies in a floodplain, and there's nothing that we can do about that. And I cannot imagine this board I mean, the hoops that we would have to jump through to make FEMA say, it's okay, you can build a daycare center there. Number one, we have nothing to do with that. But I can't imagine that this board ever allowing us to build a daycare center in a floodplain, but that's not what we want anyway. But like I say, if it will help, we're willing to do anything within reason. I mean, we went so far as to get have the land looked at so that we knew exactly where we were going, the surveyed, so we knew exactly where we were going to have the fence to make the least impact as possible. So if that is something that's acceptable, we're certainly willing to offer that.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Fry?
But I do have a question that
Go ahead,
that concerns
Councilwoman.
me, concerns me. If we were to allow this, I'm concerned that the other parties that are not in favor of it and that have mentioned, I think, to you, Mr. Fry, that they might possibly be interested in a goat farm, and would come to us with this same scenario and want it changed, want that portion changed so that they could put that in. What kind of a mess are we getting ourselves into to potentially change any other outlying R1s to accommodate just pieces?
Well,
This bothers me a lot.
let me interject in that real quick. The little miniature ponies that I was talking about, y'all didn't even know about it, okay? And it's a fact, and it's a reality, and it's in R1. It's not even in agriculture, it's in R1.
Then it wasn't approved, right?
Yes, it was. It was approved through Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
It did not come to us.
As a variance.
Yeah.
And it was approved with language that stated, these are the only ones you can have. When they pass on, you can't have any more. You can't add to them. When they go away, they're gone. That could also be done in R1.
I think, Councilwoman Paget, I think
So we did.
I think your concern obviously is real for you. And I think, again, we deal with those rezoning requests independently, individually, on their own merit. And each scenario is different, whether another scenario includes a floodplain or not, includes zoning for in this case horses, or in your scenario goats. And we need to take those on those merits and the situations that they're in. I think there's an attempt to try to come together to make this a win-win, if you will. And so I think that's why the proposal came forward.
May I speak?
What about if?
Go ahead.
One, I want to clarify, it was the city manager's office that came up with the alternate rather than look at rezoning the entire site to do a split zoning with the concept that it might be more palatable because there would be a buffer zone between the residential property to the east, if I've got my directions correct, and where the horses would be, or the ag land. And then the area that is in the floodplain would be surveyed, and only that area with a small area for the stable to be rezoned to A2. I think it's important to document that Mr. Evans in his letter indicated that the earlier rezoning done many years ago was a mistake. I think our city planners covered that. We have areas in floodplain throughout town that are not zoned A1 because there are other uses for floodplain areas besides ag, rec, other things. So this is not go open the door that everybody owns a small strip of floodplain area can run up here and get it rezoned. Each one would have to stand on the merits. On this particular case, if you look at it, given its location, if this was approved, you would have a buffer on this property between it and the residential, and then on the other side of it is more floodplain. So it's not going to have significant impact. Staff provided this as a potential option for consideration. If you look at our zoning ordinance, on each type of zoning, there's two categories. One that's a permitted use. So if it's zoned that, that's what you can do without coming getting a conditional use or a special use permit. Then in each one of those zones, there's also things identified that you can do as a conditional use or special use permit. I'm not aware in any of our zoning that we have a special use permit for livestock. So if you wanted to put conditions on it, it would have to be through a conditional use or special use permit, and city attorney would need to research that and find what provision that we could do that under. Otherwise, you either have to approve it or not approve it, and it would be eligible for all those livestock things that Rebecca read off.
Other questions?
I'd just like to say that I'm more in favor of Brian's idea of us putting restrictions on it and not allowing it to go from property owner to property owner.
What if, let me just say one thing here, and to your family as well. What if we just left it residential R1, the whole thing, and did a special use on, that only followed this family on these three animals? Which, if we left it R1, means they couldn't even put up a metal building down there. It'd have to be stick construction like their home. It'd have to match the house, which that would be awesome, potentially, if it did.
Well, I believe that Mr. Friesen, speaking as a representative of Mr. Evans, said that they were willing to accept an amendment to the proposal that said if the land was sold, that the entire land would revert back to R1. Is that what I understood?
Yes, sir.
But by leaving it R1 and just giving a special use, it eliminates all the concern of the ag.
It could, but I don't think, I'd have to read our ordinance again, but I don't think a special use is something that is authorized in the A2 district. So we would have to either amend that ordinance to allow for special use, or Mr. Friesen's suggestion was, and I've done this, but I don't like it. It's a covenant in their land titles, it says, you know, it's part of their deed restrictions. Cities generally don't enforce covenants. Those are private contract rights between owners. The other possible option is to adopt a whole new ordinance category, and that would be a planned unit development. And with a planned unit development, it's a specific zoning for that use, and you can put whatever requirements you want in that. So you can be pretty finite, but I don't think we have the ability to do that under our current planned unit development ordinance. Ours is a little archaic.
So we can table this until we come back.
Well, if that's your policy decision, is you have to do it. And I hate to bring Edmund up, but that's where I do most of my land use work. And Edmund, a few years ago, passed a new zoning code, and they did a standalone planned unit development ordinance. And there are a lot of those are applied for now because the council can put restrictions on, the owners can agree to restrictions and uses. They can eliminate, of all those uses Rebecca read, they can eliminate 99% of them if you want to as part of the zoning document.
Well, that'd be something we'd have to take up at another time, but is there?
Again, that's a policy decision you've got to make and then tell the staff.
How long does something like that take, Randall, to investigate and do? Are we looking at?
It doesn't take any time. I mean, we could have an ordinance
by our next council
prepared for you to look at the next council meeting. Ordinances go into effect 30 days after they're passed.
Unless we have an emergency clause.
So if we made a
No, you
motion
don't do
to table
emergency
this right
clause
now,
on zoning.
You wouldn't do that on zoning? Okay,
But if you pass it,
yeah.
so that's, I mean, that's an option if that's something you want to look at.
Okay, all right. Mr. Case, you had a comment?
Well, I mean, yeah, I like that idea. I like it a lot because it's kind of like a line item veto. It allows us to eliminate all the things we don't want them to do. And yeah, I like that. But at the same time, I don't want to denigrate the city staff for the work they've done trying to bring this together too. I mean, everybody appears that everybody is trying to make this work, and I just think we ought to do whatever we can to help that happen.
Okay.
I think we should probably table this.
Any other discussion from council?
I'm going to make a motion to table this until Randall can get back to us on the next
Seconded.
council.
I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second to table with the time frame for legal and staff to,
Next council.
Next council meeting.
Yeah, we can have an ordinance by next council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak, please?
sure. You're the homeowner. Please identify yourself.
My name is James Fry. I live at 912 Westlake Road, Guthrie. Been here about 2 years. I've been advised not to speak because I'm a pretty brass man. I'm a retired naval officer and I don't take from anybody. Now, I tried last time to address the evidence as I didn't want to be a bad neighbor. And I got kind of hooed on that. Okay, that's their prerogative. Just like it's your prerogative, sir, to come on loud and strong. It's my prerogative to say, I want you people to know who I am, what I am. My dad was a rancher. My stepfather was a hog man. I worked for the Cab Pfizer Genetics in their hog production for about a year after graduating from college, after I completed my Navy career of 22 years. I got a bachelor's and a master's in ag and in range management. Now, about feeding the horses in that area down there, that's why they make hay. That's why they make supplementary food. Now, I have no objection at all to animals. I love them. But I don't love them when I can smell them and bothered by their insects they draw, and people don't take care of them. Since the 2 years I've been here, I think 3 occasions I've had to call Mr. Freeze about his cattle that got out of his land and got on my land. Or got on the land behind me that hadn't been sold at that time. Okay, I know what cattle do. I know what goats do. If my next door, the Terrells, are able to have goats on their property, one goat can wipe out my wife's entire ration of flowering plants, flowering trees. If you've ever driven by that place, you'll see trees all over the place we put in. I don't know, probably about 50 or 60 new trees, plus bushes. Okay, now, if we have animals that are roaming this area, they will eat those bushes, and deer eat them too. That's why I'm putting those little screens up. They'll keep the deer out. They won't keep a goat out, and they won't keep a cow out. So please, gentlemen, consider that. My wife and I sold our home in South Texas, moved up here to be close to family. That's why we're here. And we like it here. We want to stay here. But I do not want to have a neighbor war going over something like 3 horses. It makes no sense to me at all. So please, if you would, give it due consideration and quit kicking it down the road. We've, as my son said, 5 or 6 months we've been playing with this game. Let's make a decision. And if it goes against me, that's just the way things happen. I learned that a long time ago. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Any questions of Mr. Fry?
Yeah, Mr. Fry, real quick, I think what we're trying to do is not just vote this right in.
Yeah.
I think that we're trying to put some stipulations on it, like Jim said, where we can go and we can say, no, you can't have the goats, you can't have the cows, you can't have the pigs, you can't do this, 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 and that. Because if we just make a vote on it and pass it in, then, and it goes completely against you, I understand that that's unfair in your opinion as well.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is, we're tired of getting kicked down the road. Make up your minds, gentlemen, one way or the other. As far as continuing to make little adjustments here and there, back and forth. I'm probably speaking when I should keep my mouth shut, but that's the way I feel.
Thank you.
We want to live a very nice, quiet, urban/rural life. That's why we're here. So don't screw it up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. So we have a motion on the floor to postpone,
And I may need.
and we have a second.
One clarification, I don't think it'll change that, but, what I think you are going to instruct staff to do is draw a new ordinance that we don't have in Guthrie now, the Planned Unit Development Ordinance. And I think that probably will have, that ordinance itself has to go to the Planning Commission before it comes to the council. So it will, time-wise, it's gonna have a couple of weeks lag time in there that I wasn't anticipating. What would happen if the Planning Commission recommended approval of the new PUD ordinance to the council, council would vote on it, and then the applicant would file it or amend this application. Basically, I think we'd allow them to amend, if this is what you wanted to do, amend this application to the PUD on the floodplain with all the restrictions you want to put in there on it.
The restrictions on resale and those kinds of things.
Because we've had other issues come up. I think long-term, that's the way to go.
Yeah, long-term, that's a great ordinance to put in there. Then it works for any zoning that we have on the books.
And as the mayor said, every zoning is a standalone zoning, and you review each one on the merits
Yes.
of that application.
And for down the road, for Guthrie's future, that's a great idea.
And I've seen the way Guthrie has kept their records in the past, and I can tell you that it is, if you start doing hundreds of these PUDs that have special regulations to them, we're going to have to make sure that all those records are maintained. So when somebody comes in and says, well, this is zone such and such, we're going to have to be able to tie it back to the special conditions on each piece of property. So we're going to have to keep records a lot better than what we have in the past.
Which, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it can be cumbersome depending on how many of these you do. If you start handing these things out like candy on Halloween, there's going to be a lot of record keeping. Hopefully, we don't overuse this tool.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone, requesting staff to do additional work on being able to restrict the zoning capacity. I'm not, that's not the correct words, but plan and development. And we have a second to that. Are there any other discussion?
This is not being tabled to next meeting, correct?
Not necessarily.
But we do need a date certain, don't we? Because of the public hearing?
We're not continuing the public hearing.
Because it'll have to come back as a total amended application, which would go to the planning commission and the council if the PUD concept is authorized.
So it goes back to planning and then comes back to us.
Yes.
That's a long time.
Well, it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be, I mean, you've gotta approve the ordinance first that allows you to ever do what you're talking about doing on this particular piece of property. So you're gonna have a planning commission hearing on the ordinance itself. If they recommend approval, well, they're gonna make a recommendation to you. You're gonna hear it either way.
Yeah.
You're gonna vote for or against it. If you vote for it, then this application will be amended to a PUD application as opposed to a A2 application.
Yes.
Okay?
And
Understand
it'll
that.
go through the process.
And it'll go through the process again.
Okay. So I have a motion to postpone with the work that has been identified by legal counsel here. Any other discussion or clarification? Okay.
I'm still trying to resolve Kim's question in my mind, whether we need to do this to a date certain or do it indefinitely.
Why can't you do it for the council after next? That'll give planning time to do it and you time to put the ordinance together and it's done.
Well, but then they've got to, once you approve the ordinance allowing this kind of zoning, they've got to file their or amend their application to request a PUD application, which is another planning commission and council just
Yeah.
on their application.
We're talking 2 months.
We're talking
You're talking easy,
middle of summer.
2 months.
Okay? All right, that's the general time frame that we're talking about, just for information purposes.
So do we want to
2 months.
keep this application the way it is?
Do we need to have the 2 months identified on the,
I
on
think we ought
the
to
proposal?
I think we ought to continue this matter, and this is what, the first meeting in March?
I'm going to withdraw my motion so we can take a vote tonight.
I think that's a good idea.
Just a second
Is
withdrawal.
it a second withdrawing? You withdraw?
Who made
Is a second? You withdraw? Okay. We are, I will entertain a motion to approve the requested action, to grant the request to rezone property as identified. And I need, do you want, what about
I make a
the-
motion.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. What
It ha-
about the statement that if it's sold, or do we not want to get into that?
It doesn't matter once the zone's changed, if it
That
changes.
really is not a zoning issue.
Okay.
It's
I think we had
All
a
right.
motion to my
All right,
left.
all right. I'll entertain a motion then to approve the request from Melvin and Laura Evans for the rezoning as identified from R1 to R2 along the floodplain lines.
I'll make a motion.
A2, I'm sorry, A2, I said R2.
I'll make a motion in the affirmative to approve the resolution.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the request as identified.
One clarification, it's an ordinance, not a resolution.
I'm sorry, okay, ordinance to possible action on ordinance 3313 to approve the request of the Evans family to convert zoning from R1 to A2 in the floodplain area. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All this may be in, Councilman Smedley, you may need to clarify.
It's no.
Okay.
Okay. By a vote of, I guess it's going to be 4-2, the request has been approved to rezone R1 to R2 in the floodplain area, as Mr. Evans has requested. Mr. Smedley, your yes vote is really no. Is that correct?
Right,
Okay.
right. My
All right,
deal
so
does
4-2, the request passes to approve that request.
Voted both ways.
Item number 4, discussion possible action on resolution 2018-06, supporting the passage of state question 794, Marcy's Law. Staff comments? Chief?
Marcy's Law has nothing to do with zoning.
Good.
Everything to do with victims. The legislature passed this to go to the vote of the people in they passed it in April of 2017. It's going to go to the vote of the people in November of 2018. Basically, it gives a laundry list of rights to victims that are often overlooked by the police, prosecutors, parole, prisons, stuff like that. It's really a good thing for victims. It puts the burden on the police and the prosecutors to keep victims up to date on many, many things. About the worst thing that would be for our police department is it's one more form for us to fill out, showing that we gave every victim the rights afforded to them under Marcy's Law.
Okay, good. Any questions of the chief?
And this goes, well, this
Can
just,
you give a recommendation?
I am recommending that you pass a resolution supporting
Thank you.
the passage of Marcy's Law.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to support Resolution 2018-06 on State Question 794.
One quick thing. Marcy's Law is one of their people that's here tonight. It's Jill Sherrill. She's kind of the one who's been heading this up. I just wanted to acknowledge that she was here tonight.
Okay? Very good. Any questions of Jill? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Submit your votes.
I'll vote for it.
See the votes. Unanimous approval
Thank you all very
to
much.
support that resolution and the passage of State Question 794. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to confirm appointments of individuals nominated by each member of the council to the American Disability Advisory Committee. Staff comments.
Took us 5 months, but I feel like we have a really solid group to create and fulfill this board. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, just really excited to get this established.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, submit your votes.
I'll vote for it.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval to appoint those individuals nominated by council members to the American Disability Act Advisory Committee as identified, with terms as identified in the submission. Item number 6, we'd like to table for additional information for future discussion. So I'm moving on to item number 7, which is City Manager Report.
I do not have a report tonight.
Okay. Item number 8, requests and comments. Councilman Paget.
No comments this evening, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Taylor.
Just wanted to let everybody know, please do not forget this Saturday. I hope I'm not making a political statement, but I would like to invite the people in this community to come down to hear their politicians talk. The Republican side, it'd be the governor, lieutenant governor, and other state offices, as well as our local people. This is an opportunity for you to come and voice your opinion. They will speak, and then you can go to their table and talk one-on-one with them. And don't forget, 89er celebration is coming up. We need some cars. I think the mayor may say something about that tonight. We need some convertibles, and so we'd like to have them come if you would, and help us out on that. And other than that, Mayor, that's it.
Okay. Councilman Wood.
I have nothing to say tonight. But
Okay.
thank you for everybody being here.
Councilman Smedley.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, fellow city council members, and everybody have a good rest of your good night.
Councilman Bothroyd.
I ditto that, staff, and you guys do a great job, and, I do want to sometimes pull myself back a little bit and maybe not get so aggressive, but, I do a lot of research on this stuff as well, a tremendous amount. I have the time to be able to do it. The one thing that I want to make sure that happens is exactly what we were talking about in this scenario. So as a councilman, I'm requesting that we carry on with the ordinance upgrade modification that we were discussing earlier. And so that 2 months down the road, that's back in front of us to approve, or actually it wouldn't be that. It'd be a month down the road because it'd go to planning, then it'd come to council, then we could approve it, adopt it, and then we won't find ourselves in so much of this predicament to where
We don't have to use it.
we don't have to use
No.
it. That's exactly right. But it'll be there to where we can in a certain circumstance.
And I completely agree, because I think this has really helped Guthrie down the road. Yes, and I understand what city manager's saying, that this could become a very tedious thing to look after and maintain, but I don't believe it's a good thing to have there for the future of Guthrie.
I think so too.
I think it will help clarify for future generations what the options are. And so we'll wait and see. Staff, and legal counsel, I'm sure, will do a great job in presenting to us some real good alternatives there. Councilman Case.
I think we just covered everything. I don't really need to say anything.
Okay, all right, good. As I am prone to do, I want to identify again that we have opportunities for boards and commission vacancies. I believe we still have vacancies in forestry, our forestry board, as well as planning. We have some planning that are coming up shortly, anticipated vacancies where terms are expiring. So I think we have maybe 2 there. And also historic preservation have some anticipated vacancies coming up. So please go on to our City of Guthrie webpage and identify, look through what those boards and commissions do and see if you are interested, and then applications can be online. So please do that. Also, we have been identified, I think, for about the 28th year in a row now as a tree city. Just received that designation. Again, renewal of that designation. So congratulations to people on the forestry board, people in the parks that are involved with the trees throughout our great city. And also, I'd like to congratulate the city. We were one of 53 communities in Oklahoma that have been certified as a healthy community by Certified Healthy Oklahoma. Nice. So congratulations for the staff and individuals or organizations that have assisted us in improving health of our community and should be in a group of only 53. Congratulations. That's very, very positive.
Can I throw one other thing out real quick? The bed run is on the 18th, right? Yeah, it's on the 18th.
It's Thursday of 89er week.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, and that was pretty fun last time. I mean, if you haven't been there, I recommend you go. It was actually hilarious.
And it looks like it's actually the 19th on my calendar, Councilman. And 89ers is coming up, a lot of planning going on. It is a major activity, of course, for our community. It is our birth time, because we were basically birthed the land run of April 22nd, 1889. And yes, we are looking for some vehicles to carry VIPs in the parade. Miss Oklahoma, of course, is our parade grand marshal. But we expect an awful lot of other VIPs to be with us, joining in this great celebration. Again, Saturday, the 21st of April, is the parade. So if you know somebody with a convertible or even an open-air Jeep of something of that sort, please contact Councilman Taylor or myself, and we will make those arrangements. With that, being the last item on the agenda.
Jeff talked about the representative, but he didn't say where or when.
Oh, I'm sorry. It'll be down at the fairgrounds at 9 o'clock. Sorry about that. That's what my wife was pointing out. 9 o'clock on the 10th, this Saturday coming up.
This Saturday, 9 o'clock, 10th, fairgrounds.
Yes, sir.
Come ask your representatives or candidates good questions. With that, ladies and gentlemen,